right. Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. We are here at the final day of May. May has been a really fun month here. We have been focusing on biodiversity. May 22nd was the International Day for Biological Diversity. So all month long, we've been hosting scientists and explorers and conservationists who are going out there and introducing us to this amazing wild planet of ours, the wild places, the wildlife. But they've also been bringing back stories of habitat loss and the loss of our biodiversity and what that means to us. But it's not all bad news, because we've also heard great stories about solutions and conservation and communities coming together to protect their homes, their backyards. So very, very cool to be able to do this month. Next week, we dive right into the ocean. So World Ocean Week is coming up. We have a ton of live events coming your way. exploringbytheseat.com if you want to check out those live events. And we hope to see your classrooms hanging out with us. So before we say goodbye to Biodiversity Month, we're going to spend a little time with Meg Lowman, also known as CanopyMeg. So she is the world's first global Arbornaut. She has worked in over 40 countries and pioneered the toolkit for exploring the 8th continent, the forest canopy. So if you look up, there's a whole ecosystem up there that is so underexplored. There's so many relationships and species up there waiting to be discovered. So Meg also passionately mentors girls and underserved students. She recently started Mission Green to save the world's last highest biodiverse forest by building canopy walks and employing indigenous women in ecotourism. So I'm really excited to have Meg hanging out with us today. Let's grab her from backstage. Hey Meg, how are you?
Hey, I'm so great to be down on land. Thanks so much, Joe. It's exciting to talk to all those great students out there.
All right. Well, speaking of those great students, we do have classrooms joining us from Canada and the US. Don't be shy. Say hi in the chat sidebar. Start sending your questions in at any time. I see a few classes saying hi already. We've got Mrs. Shields' class saying hi. We've got a group in Nova Scotia saying hi. We've got grade 7s with Miss Zawani saying hi. So keep that chat going. We're looking forward to your questions. But Meg, I'd like to let you take over for a little bit. You're going to kind of, I guess you're the headliner of Biodiversity Month. You're going to take us into the canopy ecosystem.
I sure will. And just first, in the US, about 20 states require this book for science education. So if any of you teachers don't know about it, it was started by National Geographic when Bob Ballard and I did a distance learning project. So The Most Beautiful Roof, and then there's a new one called The Leaf Detective. Great work. And then Nat Geo just came out with their new workbook this year, which has a little section on what job would students like to have, and maybe I can recruit some new treetop climbers. So that's my little ad for trying to make sure people join me in the treetops. But shall I go ahead with the slides, Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. While you're loading them, I'm just going to shout out Mrs. Polge's 5th graders are saying hi as well. So we've got a great group hanging out, and I'm really excited for the questions when they come.
Cool. And Joe, if at any time you can't see or hear me, just interrupt, but I'll just run through a couple stories if that's okay. And then I look forward to questions. But
yeah, Meg, we're just going to have to do we'll have to reshare, because for whatever reason that the share went away. So we're going to have to reshare the screen.
Well, then I'll do that right now. Okay.
Yeah, but that's okay. We tested earlier and it all worked beautifully. So I have no doubt it'll connect again.
Okay, so we'll get it back. Let's see. Share screen, share screen, share screen, and share screen. Share. Let's see what happens. How's that? Is it coming through?
I see. Oh, we just lost it again. It came up. And then we lost it. Let's try one more time, Meg. I'm not sure what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
But let's see. It could be just the computer playing up, or maybe just a wrong button. Let's see. Okay, we're loading. There we go.
Really? Cool. How's that? And I'm making it bigger, I hope. Is it big enough?
It's full screen. Looks good.
Okay. Cool. Fantastic. All right. Well, I changed your title, Joe, because I use a harness to climb trees, but I want to share a few things with students about what we've discovered in the treetops, which I call the 8th continent, because it is a whole new world with over 100 million cool things up there. And raise your hand, kids, if you've ever climbed a tree. I can't see your classroom, but your teacher can. Everybody probably almost raised their hand, but you know, there's something cool about climbing a tree. You don't need a rope and a harness like me. You just need a branch and a rock or maybe a little tree fort, but it's a great way to explore something new. So I hope all of you will become Arbonauts, which is the technical name for what I do. You've heard of astronauts exploring outer space and aquanauts going undersea, but Arbonauts explore the tops of trees. I was not a true athlete as a kid. In fact, I grew up in a time when they said girls couldn't even study science, just boys. So quietly, I made a wildflower collection that I took to the New York State Science Fair because I grew up in a very tiny town, quite near Canada, actually, Joe. And lo and behold, I got a second prize for my little pressed wildflowers. And there were all other boys at the science fair but me, and I was too shy to even scream and yell for joy. But it taught me that you just need to look around, collect things, enjoy nature, and maybe you can make some new discoveries, which leads me to my first secret to share with you. So I climbed a tree way before you were born. It was, gosh, 40 plus years ago, and I did it by making a slingshot out of a piece of metal and sewing a harness from seatbelt webbing. And lo and behold, science of studying the treetops is less than 50 years old. You know, studying undersea is over 100 years old. Studying physics is over 1,000 years old, and chemistry is over 10,000 years old. But studying the treetops is a brand new science, and I need some more helpers, maybe some of you. And someday you might even climb a really tall tree like I'm doing here, which is a redwood in California. Or maybe you'll climb at night, which I had to do to find a lot of cool things that are out at night, like the slow loris in Malaysia, or a lot of beetles feeding on leaves just in the dark so that birds won't eat them. And sometimes you get to make new discoveries, like my student here named Anthony, and Anthony figured out how water gets to the top of a 300-foot high redwood tree in California. So,
Hey, Meg, I'm sorry to jump in. It sounds like from the presentation, the slides are changing for you, but we don't see them changing for us.
oh, wow. I wonder how that happened. Is that changing?
Now it is changing, yeah.
That's weird. Yeah, okay. So that's kids climbing trees, and there is me at the science fair, and there was secret number one. I don't know why. Now it's changing for me too, but it wasn't before. So go figure. It was just changing on one screen of my two screen. And so we're right up to here with redwoods, and we're here in the dark climbing trees, and now we're here with Anthony discovering how water gets to the top of the tree. So please let me know if it stops changing. Okay, Joe? Cool.
Absolutely.
So all of these people, mostly me, were climbing trees just using a crazy slingshot and a harness and a piece of rope. It costs less than $200 to make all these new discoveries. In fact, here I am in Taiwan, training students over there, climbing their amazing trees. And all of us are just using ropes and a harness and a slingshot. So it means that it doesn't cost a lot of money to be an Arbornaut. It just costs a lot of time and energy and enthusiasm to climb those trees. I bet in your schoolyard, wherever you live, you have a lot of new species, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I became a mom, and I had little boys, and lo and behold, it was hard to put babies on a rope, and it was hard to put my mother, who has a wheelchair, on a rope. So when I was studying in Australia, I developed a new method for climbing trees called the treetop walk, or the Canopy bridge. And here's a couple of pictures here, one on the left in Belize and one on the right in the Amazon. So these bridges are great because it means a lot of people can go in the canopy and there's nothing to stop them, and they can all work together. Whereas on a rope, only one person can go at a time. So here's a cool canopy walkway that I built over in a country called Malaysia, where guess what? All the forests were getting cut down for a product called palm oil, which is unfortunately in lipstick and nail polish and car upholstery and plastic toys. And so we saved this forest from being cut down by building a walkway and discovering 1,500 species there. And that way the United Nations declared it a special UNESCO World Heritage Area. And you can see how close it is to the big city, but it's a great education tool for millions of people. So canopy walkways have become great. Here's a walkway in Vermont. If you live near Montreal or Toronto or New England of USA, you can go to Quechee, Vermont, and even go on a giant spider web for fun. That's part of our canopy walkway there. And my third tool in my toolkit, though, to climb and explore treetops is my favorite, which is a hot air balloon, where we can actually cruise around the treetops and look down, or we can even move this very cool inflatable raft that looks like a bicycle tire, and we can pop it on top of the trees, which is too high up for us to attach a rope and too delicate to put a canopy walkway. So this raft allows me to study the coolest things at the very top of the tree. And if you look carefully at about 1 o'clock in the center, you can see me at night climbing up through a hole into this canopy raft, where I'm going to spend the night and survey all the bugs that are living in the treetops by putting my hands through those round yellow donut holes, which allow me to pull leaf samples or bug samples if I need to. Here's a little video, and let's see if we can make it work, of this whole thing. And you don't have to worry about the sound, but this was a movie that National Geographic made of my exploration, where we're up high.
A sled bearing excited researchers on the trip of their lives. Among them is one of the founders of the field, Meg Lowman, who's explored canopies the world over.
So you can see how we get a great view from up there.
Has gone before.
And it's a little scary, but I have a harness on. Can you see that? So if I fall off the plastic, I'm still dangling.
Patrol the green sea.
And here we go. New bugs, new orchids, new flowers. Everything up there is brand new. This was in actually Cameroon, Africa, and we've done it in French Guiana, and we've done it in all kinds of places.
Sidling up to a tree crown, 150 feet in the air. As soon as they are close enough to reach, nets are wielded frantically. They scoop up insects and collect whole branches in an all-out effort to gather as many samples of canopy life as quickly as they can. It will have taken weeks of difficult and dangerous climbing to get the samples they amass in just one morning on the luge.
So there you have the third tool in my toolkit.
Canopy, which invites the best researchers the world over to join its venture. They also use the canopy raft, a web-like platform dropped over the crowns of several trees. Walking atop the swaying trees is like walking on the face of the sea.
I guess I feel really special walking on the tops of trees, and I really tiptoe all the time because I'm frightened of disturbing these poor little bugs or snapping a branch. But in actual fact, with the raft and its wonderful mesh floor, our weight is dispersed really nicely.
Meg's work in the treetops has shown that over millions of years, plants evolved poisons to defend themselves from being eaten, while insects evolved ways to overcome these toxins. Rainforest plants and insects are waging a biochemical war.
So there you have it. We have all kinds of tools. And finally, tool number 4 in my toolkit to explore the tops of trees is a construction crane. But there are only about 10 of these around the world. They're quite expensive for most countries to afford. And this one happens to be in Panama, which is a country that can afford a lot of research. And you can imagine that going in that bucket around the forest gives you access to every leaf and every sloth and every lizard, but only within the arm of the crane. You can't be too flexible like you can with a rope and a harness and travel everywhere. So those 4 tools, the rope with my slingshot and harness, number 2, the walkway, number 3, the hot air inflatables, and number 4, the canopy crane, have led me and a few others to figure out that over half the species living on the land part of our planet live in the tops of trees. So every big tree is like a big condominium or apartment house, housing thousands of species, most of which we don't know about because there haven't been too many Arbornauts like me to go up and explore each one. And most of them, I must tell you, are insects. So I do hope you'll learn to love insects. A lot of kids grow up knowing they should squish insects, but it's not really true. They pollinate our gardens, they nibble at our trees and grass a little bit, and they actually help plants get healthier, and they help plants develop chemicals, which we turn into medicines. So insects are a fantastic resource, and a lot of them live in the tops of trees. So promise me you won't squish any more insects. You will study them instead because they're so very cool. And some things that live in the treetops are microscopic. Raise your hand if you know what this is. Again, I can't see you. I wished I could. But if you have your hand raised, that means you probably have gone online and looked up extremo-tolerant organisms, those things that can live in ice and snow and hot and cold. And yes, this is a water bear or a tardigrade, its very own phylum of biodiversity. And we are finding thousands of those living in the treetops because all they need is a little drop of water. And there are so many new species. I bet the tree in your own backyard has a new species of water bear if you happen to have a tree in your own backyard. Some things are bigger that we can see, and one of my students studied sloths, and I won't tell you the answer to this, but he found out that the sloth really means very quick and very agile. In this case, when he studied sloths in the treetops, he found out they don't sleep that much at all. They are so active, eating leaves and doing other things. So I'll save that story for later. And other things use the canopy. Gorillas, I just was in Rwanda 2 weeks ago, and they use the trees to eat the lower leaves, to shelter, to have a little bit of fun tumbling and rolling around in the canopy. And the one on the right is a lemur from Madagascar, where I was about a month ago, and they actually use the canopy as well as the forest floor. So all kinds of animals all around the world need trees. They don't need baby trees. They need big trees to have their life and their food and their nests and their shelter. Secret number 3 that I'd love to share with you is something you might already know, but climbing trees and becoming an Arbornaut is actually fun for all ages. You know, to be a physicist, you probably have to go to college and read 1,000 textbooks, and then you become a physicist. But to become an Arbornaut or a tree explorer, you only need to use your 5 senses. And these kids from 3rd grade in my hometown here in Florida did a field trip to a canopy walkway I built here in our state park. And guess what? They made an observation and found a brand new species of insect. So they became published scientists at the age of 10, and now they are full-blown Arbornauts. So use your 5 senses if you go into the trees or into the woods, and you'll probably discover something new. Even my own kids, and if you read that book called The Most Beautiful Roof, you'll see pictures of Eddie and James when they were little learning to climb trees with their mom for a National Geographic program called the Jason Project. And so it's been a really great adventure as a mom to have my kids climbing trees with me. And over the years, I've taken a lot of people in the treetops. I've really become very passionate, as Joe mentioned, about taking people that might not think they could go there, students from Mexico and students from Malaysia and students from Madagascar, but also students that might not even think they could ever climb. Like some of my students have been in wheelchairs because of accidents or medical reasons. And this is Rebecca from Maine, and Rebecca learned to climb using pulleys in her arms. And guess what? She found 3 new species of water bears in the oak trees of Iowa. So she didn't even have to go far from home to find new species. Secret number 4, maybe the most important thing for you to know about with your teachers, is that trees keep us alive. And without forests, we will not be here on this planet anymore. So maybe you want to take a picture of this slide if you're a teacher, because these 10 things are what trees do for us. And I'm going to go through it really fast, but they're really worth looking at with your class. Tree canopies provide us with fresh water. Did you know there's more water in the treetops of the Amazon than in the Amazon River itself? Because every leaf is like a little sponge. Trees provide shade here in Florida that saves millions of dollars a year in air conditioning. Trees give us oxygen. Tree leaves produce chemicals that we use for medicines. Trees give us timber, of course, and we now know trees are home to over 50% of creatures on Earth. They give us food. Guess what? My favorite food comes from a tree, which is chocolate. Did you know that chocolate grows on trees? So that's pretty cool to know. Trees store and save soil from being rushed off of the top of the ground and going out into rivers because the roots hold the soil. Trees store carbon, which is great because humans pollute carbon dioxide with our cars and trucks. And trees control our climate in so many ways and give us energy. And finally, many trees in about 8 billion people in the world need trees for their spiritual strength, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to take you quickly to one of those countries that uses trees for religion, just so you get a sense of something really different from your own hometown. And this picture is Google Earth of Ethiopia, a country in Africa. And if you look up close, can you see those little green circles? Those are the last bits of forest left in northern Ethiopia, little circular dots of forest. And up close, they are called church forests. And priests in Ethiopia have the last remaining trees in their surrounds of their church. So my secret number 5 to tell you is that saving forests isn't about scientists working, but we need parents, teachers, students, even religious leaders to help us save trees. Everybody needs to work at it. And in Ethiopia, this is a close-up of those church forests. And you can see on the left a forest that's still alive and healthy. And around the edge of it is a stone wall that I built with the priests. We decided that to save their forests from cattle feeding on the trees, from people taking the edge trees down because sometimes they get a little wilted in dry weather, we needed a beautiful conservation wall. So we've been building these walls. And if you look on the right, you'll see a church that never got a wall and it lost all of its trees, which means it's a really bad thing for all the local people because women go to the church forest to get water and cart it in jugs to come home. And if you lose your water table near your village, then you have to go 2 villages away to get water. So that's a really tough thing. And the church forests also house the pollinators for everybody's gardens, making them super important. So in Ethiopia, as I said, we've been building these walls. We have funded this whole project from students around the world, giving up their lunch money for a week and sending in donations. And every wall costs about $6 US for a meter of stone wall, which pays for the truck rental and the building of gates so that people can go to church, and a little tiny donation to the church itself. So without too much money, we've been saving these trees in Ethiopia so the kids there will have a future and they won't be without all their local species or their gardens or their water. So I've been also working with the kids to train them about nature because they don't have any books in their school. They don't have any kind of field guides. They certainly don't have a computer to look things up. And so together we're working to make sure their future is assured because they now have their native trees and native birds and native plants. And I even wrote a book in their language. If you look on the left, that's the Amharic language of Ethiopia, which is a children's book explaining the value of trees that I give out for free to all the kids when I go to Ethiopia. So in the end, we need to educate people everywhere. Here are students in Kenya, and I Zoomed with them a couple weeks ago, and now they're doing a tree planting today, actually, in their village to make sure there's more trees for the future. So lots of people need trees. Here's my friend Jane Goodall that Joe mentioned earlier, and she was an expert on primates, but she also knew that without trees, her animals could never live. So together we tried to work hard to save the forests of Africa where her gorillas inhabited. And finally, as Joe mentioned, I have a project now called Mission Green. I'm building those canopy walkways around the world in the most important forests of the world. And I'm halfway done. It's exciting. We have one in the sequoias of California. We have one in the subtropical forests of Florida. We have one in the Amazon in Peru, and one in Malaysia, and one being planned in Madagascar, and another finished in Vermont, and another being planned in Brazil. So stay tuned, because hopefully we will create these beautiful places where local people can earn money, and the genetic library or the biodiversity of the planet will have a future. And I mentioned some of those books earlier for the teachers, but these are all great books to read about how we can save biodiversity together in the treetops, which is, as you now know, half of the biodiversity on the planet. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to turn it back to Joe to host your questions.
All right. Awesome, Meg. That was great. Thank you for those secrets. I think those are great tips for students. You really have led an exciting life, kind of pioneering the exploration of one of the most exciting regions of our planet. We always hear about the ocean, and people are talking about space, but we still have lots of work to do right on the land where we're walking around. It's just a little bit higher up.
That's exactly right. Close to home.
Yeah, absolutely. What I thought we'd do, Meg, before we get heavily into the questions, is I made a little Kahoot quiz while you were presenting. And we'll give the students a chance to play a little game and see how they do on the quiz. And then we'll do some questions together. So I am going to share my screen. And then while students are joining, we'll take a few questions as well. So let me get my screen up here. There we go. And it's going to give us a code. So here we go. If you'd like to join today's Kahoot, you need to go to kahoot.it. You can see it down here at the bottom. If you have a device at your seat, you might be able to scan this QR code as well. And then it's going to ask you for this PIN number, 1732713 is what we need for today. So if you want to come in and join us for the Kahoot, obviously we'd love to have you play along. If you can't join at your seat or your teacher can't join, no big deal. You can still see how you do with the questions, and then, see how you do with those answers. So let's do a couple questions. I have some questions here in the chat already, Meg. So we're going to get to some of them while we've got some groups coming in here to join us. So the first one I have here is from some grade 7s. And they're wondering, in the canopy, Meg, what's the rarest animal you've ever seen?
Oh, what a great question. So this is a cool, tough question, believe it or not, because when you think about the fact that I've probably climbed less than 1% of the trees in the world, even over 45 years, how do I know what is rare? So the answer is we don't yet know what is rare. I certainly know that certain beetles I only see once every 10 years. So that might be it's rare, but maybe it lives on a different tree that I haven't climbed yet. So we need you to become an Arbornaut and work with me so we can answer that question. Even in your own backyard, it's easy to say grass is common, but it's really hard to say which animal is the most rare, which bug is the rarest, because maybe you've never seen it before. So it's a trick question, but I really appreciate your asking it, because that's the thing we all wish to answer as scientists. Thanks.
All right. We've got some more grade 7s here from Peel Virtual hanging out with us. And they're wondering, did you always know that this was the career for you, that this was what you were going to do?
I actually never knew. And when I grew up, I was so shy and I was kind of a geek because I played outdoors and none of my girlfriends wanted to play outdoors. So I was a little bit of a loner, but I loved nature. And because I was so shy, you know, trees never bullied me. They never talked back. So I learned to love nature a lot. And I just kept studying it, even though people said girls couldn't do that. And I kept working about learning flowers and learning birds. And lo and behold, I finally ended up being an expert, which was such a surprise. So you don't have to know where you'll end up, but I would always advise kids, follow what you love. If you have a passion for nature, study it. If you have a passion for trains, maybe you want to become a train engineer, but it's always important to think about what you love.
All right. I'm going to take a little pause from the questions, and we're going to play our Kahoot together. I see we have over a dozen groups in here with us, which is great. So let's play some Kahoot. Remember, the quicker you put in the right answers, the more points you are going to get. And the first question here is a multiple choice. So we've been studying the treetops for about how long? Did Meg say about 25 years, about 50 years, about 75 years? Or has it been about as long as 100 years that we've been studying the treetops for? So what do you think? You've still got about 15 seconds on the clock. Is it about 25 years, about 50 years, 75 years, or has it been over 100 years that we've been up studying the canopy? You got a few more seconds to lock something in. All right. All right. Good job, crew. It is about 50 years. So, you know, if anyone ever tells you there's nothing left to explore or discover, I think you can kind of laugh a little bit because we've got our oceans, we've got our treetops. We were talking to a pangolin scientist the other day, and we don't know how fast their scales grow. We have so much to learn about the natural world. It's not even funny. Okay, true or false question coming your way. It's very expensive to explore the treetops. What do you think about that question? It's very expensive to explore the treetops. Do you think that's true? Or do you think that's false? Remember Meg talking at the beginning about one of the tools that she uses to explore the treetops. So is it very expensive to explore the treetops? True or false? All right, good job, crew. And Meg, we talked about that. We talked about how with a slingshot and some rope, you're able to explore the treetops. I imagine the blimp might be a little more expensive.
A little more, but still you can do it with the ropes, which is so great.
Yep. All right. Next question coming your way. Some true or false action. Meg pioneered canopy walkways as a way to make the canopy more accessible. So here we go. Question is open. Is that true or is that false? Did Meg pioneer canopy walkways to make the canopy more accessible? We've got about 10 more seconds to lock something in. All right. Good job, crew. That is absolutely true. I've been able to explore different canopies, walks in places around the world, and it is a really great way that even, you know, somebody challenges walking or maybe in a wheelchair can get right up there in the canopy and experience a really exciting ecosystem. Okay, another question coming your way about what % of land species live in the canopy. So this is a numbers question here. About what % of land species live in the canopy? Was it about 10%, 22%, 35%, or is it as high as maybe even more than 50%? So what do you think? You've got a few more seconds to lock something in. What % of land species live in the canopy? 10, 22, 35, or 50%? And there we go. Good job, crew. Oh, about 50%. We've got a podium to check here. In third place, we had the magnificent pelican. In second place today, the genius dingo. And holding down our top spot in our Kahoot, the awesome wombat. Very cool. A couple Australian animals there. Okay, I'm going to come back from that screen share. And we're going to go 100% into Q&A action. So thanks to the classrooms for playing along. You guys did great. Oh, I like this one. This one's really cool. This is from our group on the East Coast here in Canada. and they're wondering, do you study the full tree, even down to like the mycorrhiza, down to like the fungus relationships?
Right. I have studied the whole tree, and I actually studied a lot about those fungi. 30 years ago in Australia, we discovered everything about the links and the communication and the relationships. But a lot of tropical trees don't do that. Mostly temperate trees do that. So all over the world, I have to pick different things to study. And all over the world, there's always the canopy with different things up there. So I tend to focus on the canopy because it still has the most questions that apply to every tree and every species and every forest. And the crazy thing is every tree species has different stuff living there. So that means there's a lot of work and a lot of excitement to make new discoveries.
All right. This is a question from Miss Shields' crew. And this is from Benjamin specifically. And Benjamin is wondering, climbing the canopy, you get pretty high off the ground. So if you had any close calls or dangerous experiences?
I have, but once. First of all, when I first climbed, I was so scared. I was trembling and my knees were shaking, and I kept trying to grab the tree trunk, which I know wouldn't really save me because I would have to probably let go of it to come down to the ground. I always thought the branch could be maybe kind of not strong, or maybe my rope would give way, or something bad would happen, like an ant colony would bite me. But it was all fine to climb the tree, and I got so happy about that. But one time I started up and it was thundering and lightning, and when you do climb up, you have to kind of turn around and click into your descending gear. And I was in such a rush, I forgot to fasten the click gear, which is called a carabiner. And so I did fall, but only about 15 feet. And I got bruised, but didn't break anything. But it was a good lesson. It's kind of like riding your bike, where you want your helmet, you want to test your brakes before you go down the hill. And in this case, I was just a little careless. So I learned a big lesson from that.
All right. Ariz in grade 7 would like to know, what's the longest time you've ever stayed in the canopy?
Oh, great question. Well, first of all, for girls, it's a little different from boys, because I have to come to the forest floor to go to the bathroom, whereas sometimes for boys, it's a little easier, but that's kind of an anatomical answer. I have been in the canopy and spent the night loads of times, but coming down to the forest floor to use the outhouse and then going back up into the canopy. But it's really important to use the canopy and sleep there at night. And you know why? I study insects eating leaves, and for years I never saw any insects, but I kept seeing big holes in the leaves, and I was so upset because I couldn't figure out who was eating them, until one night I got up to go to the bathroom at 2 a.m. and I heard all this noise, and it was bugs eating leaves, because the insects would eat at night, so the birds wouldn't get them. I thought, how smart is that? So that's when I started climbing at night, to find all the insects eating the leaves.
All right, very cool. We've got lots of great questions coming in here. Meg, here's another one. This is probably impossible for you to choose, but maybe you can. They'd like to know your favorite tree.
Oh, I know it. I know it. It's in a book I just wrote called Tree Day. My favorite tree is the fig tree. I love the fig tree because it's found in almost every continent but Antarctica, and the figs feed everything, birds and insects and animals. It's like the great big grocery store in the sky, but the food is free. So I just love fig trees for that reason. And there's this cool group of figs called the strangler figs, which actually a fig bird eats the seed and it poops it on a branch in the canopy, and then the fig grows its roots down and surrounds the tree and actually strangles it in the end. But the cool thing about that is it's the only tree in the world that starts life at the top of the canopy, where there's plenty of sunlight and rain, and then it grows down. So it's a guaranteed success. It's like, how come every other tree doesn't think about that and do it? So I just find that a really good lesson in life, to think hard about how to use the resources the best way, and the fig wins hands down.
All right, very cool. What about discoveries, Meg? Is there something maybe about the canopy, something about maybe a new species? Is there a discovery that's kind of always stuck with you?
Well, one thing I was amazed to find out, because I started studying leaves as we talked about my youth, and I was interested in leaves because I came from the temperate zone where the leaves fall off the tree every winter, and I went to the rainforest where it's green all year. And I thought, oh, maybe the leaves will live 2 years at the most. Some of them live 20 years. I ended up living in Australia for a long time to wait for all the leaves to fall off that I had marked with my waterproof pen. So that was pretty surprising. And then I found out that of all those leaves, insects eat about 25% a year. So insects are feeding a whole lot more than we ever thought on trees, but it doesn't kill them. It kind of makes them healthier. It's like you get a haircut and it doesn't really hurt your head. It just makes your hair grow more. So it's just a funny thing to realize that nature is taking care of itself with all of these complex interactions.
All right. So Meg, I have a question here that you've kind of answered this already when we asked you about, did you always know that you wanted to study trees? So this student joining us was curious about how you found out you were passionate about trees. And I want to change it just slightly. Why do you think people ignore trees? People, we pay a lot of attention to the wildlife, but I don't feel like we pay as much attention to the trees and the plants.
Yeah, I used to talk to Jane Goodall about this a lot. Humans, we kind of love things that talk or speak. Dolphins make noises, gorillas make noises, even birds make noises, but trees are these silent things and they don't even run away. They have to learn to protect themselves from their enemies by standing still, which is pretty amazing. So it's so easy to think maybe they're boring, but they're really not. They have all this cool warfare like chemicals and spines and growing at certain times a year when their enemies are not around to eat them. So I think trees are really, really cool, but you do have to, it's like a secret, this whole big secret world of the trees that you need to learn about, which is harder for humans because we really like things that make noise, I believe. Even games make noise, right? You wouldn't want to play your electronic games if it didn't go beep beep or somebody makes a big shout or the guns make a big firing. So we don't seem to relate as well to silent things as we do to noisy things.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, maybe two more questions here from the chat before we have to wrap up today. So do we know how rare trees can be? So is there a tree that's very, very endangered or very, very rare?
So there's mostly ecosystems that are rare. For example, in Ethiopia, there's less than 5% of their forests left. So of course the trees within those little church forests are pretty rare. There's one tree called the stinkwood. What a funny name, because its fruit is very smelly, and it has a cure for prostate cancer. So everybody's trying to save that tree because they don't want to lose it. And the same thing is true in other places like Madagascar has less than 5% of its trees left. And the few species of trees that the lemurs live in are really rare, and we need to save them if we want to save lemurs. So in every case, we're usually trying to save the patch of forest which has rare trees inside of it. Once in a while, we know there's a very rare tree, like there's only about 1,000 redwood trees left in California, which is pretty rare. But it's pretty hard usually to have enough scientists to count trees to know which ones have only 1 or 2 left. But it's a cool job. If you want a cool project, you go around the world and count trees. That could be amazing. Joe, are you up for it?
Of course. Yeah, we do some live broadcasts while we count some of those trees and see what we find up in the canopy as well.
Okay.
I think that's a really good point is, I think when we think of trees, we think of wood, we think of paper and things like that. But medicine, I think like 40 to 50% of the medicines that we have come from plants, come from trees. And I think we're losing some of them before we even realize how they could help us and how they could help human life as well.
Absolutely. And even though it's great for all you students to plant trees, nothing takes the place of a big tree, which, like I said, is the big condominium in the sky for all the species and there's enough leaves to harvest for the medicines and enough branches for everything to nest. So we do need to save big trees at all costs.
All right. Well, I think that's a great message to wrap up our biodiversity month on. We spent a lot of time this month talking about amazing wildlife, but really we've got the base, the primary producers, the plants, the trees, that we wouldn't have any of that other amazing biodiversity without. And you and I, Meg, were talking before we went live. I was talking about the birds I've been chasing, and my neck is tight from looking up in the canopy so much to try and spot them and find them. So, just that intrinsic value of just being in nature for a few minutes and just hearing the sounds and the wind in the trees. And I think it just recharges and reboots you. And I think that's pretty important.
Data that show, kids get better grades in school, people heal better in hospitals with views of nature. Nature does make us healthy. That's a huge fact.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I want to start off with a huge shout out to our classrooms. We had such a great group today. Thanks for playing Kahoot with us. Thank you for all of your amazing questions. And to those who will tune in later next week who couldn't make it live, thanks for hanging out and being with us as well. And Meg, it's always such a pleasure to steal a little bit of your time and to have you take us up into the right up into the 8th continent, exploring by the seat of your harness. That's pretty cool.
Well, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure. And I love talking to all you students. So please keep in touch and keep up the good work learning about nature with Joe and with your teachers. It's so important.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining. I hope everyone has a great weekend. I hope to see a lot of the classrooms with us next week when we dive into the ocean, another spot that we have lots of exploration left to do. So I hope to see you all joining us for World Ocean Week. But for now, we will say goodbye. So thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.